And I might say Dan Bongino, but I honestly, I don't know where Bongino is at these days. In fact, I kind of wonder about Bongino. I think Bongino is in a really rough place right now. I'm going to be honest. I see Bongino as in a real rough place. And this is somebody who was a very avid listener of Dan Bongino. And at many times I disagreed with Dan Bongino. But I was an avid listener. I think he was coming from his own heart. So I don't mind disagreeing with somebody that speaks from their own heart and their own mind. I rather like it. It sharpens my intellect. It challenges my ideas. But I think I listened to Dan Bongino enough to kind of, you like to think you understand the person at least a little bit when you're listening to them every day. And I think Dan Bongino, and maybe sometimes he kind of made references to this, but I think Bongino maybe has a bit of a hot head. Maybe he's a bit temperamental. I don't mean this to be insulting. It's just I'm measuring these personality traits because I think Bongino is kind of in a really dark spot right now. And anybody that gets that big in media is always going to develop, if they don't already have, a gigantic ego. I wouldn't know anything about that. So here's a guy who rose to prominence in the broadcast podcast world. Definitely developed a sense of self, a sense of ego. And yet, for all intents and purposes and appearances, had a pretty great life. He had a social life. He had a great family at home and a wife, a beautiful home, made plenty of money, controlled his own life. And I think he was a true believer. I do. I think Dan Bongino was a true believer. So he gets in there, this deputy director role, and what happens? I don't know. I don't know what happens. All of a sudden, the Epstein file is a hoax. All of a sudden, Epstein killed himself. Bongino's going on Fox News talking about how his life is miserable now. Apparently, there's fallout within his family, with his wife. He's stuck in the swamp doing what? Now he's in a beef with Miranda Devine on X. And I'm sitting here, it's like, if Dan Bongino is out here beefing with Miranda Devine on X while he's the FBI deputy director, something ain't right. Something is wrong at the FBI. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm not sure if Dan Bongino is feeling connection to anything right now, to be honest. I think Bongino, again, I'm not trying to be insulting here. It's just, this is what it seems like. I feel like Bongino is in a real dark, maybe even isolated place right now. And I think he realizes, everything he gave up, whether you like Bongino or not, you got to at least admit reality here. Bongino gave up a lot. Bongino gave up everything to take the role as FBI deputy director. He had it all, folks. And you could argue probably a top 10, maybe top 5, maybe at times the top podcast in the political world. He gave it all up. How do you go back to that? How do you go back to that after all the things he said in the books and the interviews and the documentaries? And after all that, how do you go back to your audience with no deep state arrests? How do you go back to your audience and not have to answer to the whys? Because think about this too. He might want to explain himself. I'm sure that would be his deepest desire, is to explain himself from his perspective and just get back to his life. But how do you do that without attacking President Trump? How do you do that without attacking Kash Patel? Do you really think Dan Bongino can go back to his audience and say, guys, there is no deep state? Guys, there was no deep state criminal to arrest. There was no Epstein story. It's a nothing burger. Do you really think he can go back to his audience and say that? What is he going to say if there's no arrests? What is he going to say? Now, again, these are all rumors. I don't know. But there have been rumors about Bongino wanting to get out. And then there were rumors that he decided to stick around after Charlie was killed and he wanted to be a part of that investigation. And there's still rumors about maybe next year he's thinking about finding a way out. I don't know. I just know that when the FBI deputy director is beefing with a columnist, an editor at the New York Post, then something ain't right. Something ain't right, folks. And if you understand, or if you think you understand Bongino's personality, at least what he puts onto the public, to me, that's a man who is not in a good place. That he feels the need to get into it with Miranda Devine today. Now, well, I don't care. Trump was probably taking a nap during the meeting. I really don't care. Let him rest. He's an old man. He's a grandpa, so it doesn't bother me if he wants to take a nap. I mean that, by the way. Really don't care. There's way more bigger issues. All right. Brooke Rollins said something interesting today, but eventually, folks, the talk is going to have to manifest into results, and that's where we're kind of caught here. There's a lot of big talk, not much results. It's like Trump says he wants to cut the federal income tax, so do it. Let's do it. So here's what Brooke Rollins said in the meeting today.
We had a couple of people receiving benefits in 6 states. In February of this year, we asked for all the states for the first time to turn over their data to the federal government, to let the USDA partner with them to root out this fraud, to make sure that those who really need food stamps are getting them, but also to ensure that the American taxpayer is protected. 21 states said yes, not surprised. 29 states said yes, not surprisingly, the red states. And that's where all of that data, that fraud comes from. But 21 states, including California, New York, and Minnesota, the blue states, continue to say no. So as of next week, we have begun and will begin to stop moving federal funds into those states until they comply and they tell us and allow us to partner with them to root out this fraud and to protect the American taxpayer. As Joe Biden was working to buy an election a year ago, he increased food stamp program funding by 40%. So now as we continue to roll that back. So
I'm not sure, and I'm not even trying to be like conspiratorial or this isn't meant to be in a negative connotation, but I'm not sure why the agriculture secretary has anything to do with that. I'm not sure why waste, fraud, and abuse is falling under the agriculture secretary's purview, but okay, whatever.